shibbity bibbity. Holy shit, can you believe the stage 2 video is finally... Bienvenido al video de la etapa 2. Okay, first off, let me quickly cover what we're going to talk about in this video. 1, we're going to go over every part that was installed in stage 2 and how much it costs. 2, I'll finally reveal the official power numbers for stage 2. No more tweaking, no more tuning. These are the horsepower and torque numbers I'm going to log for stage 2. This is it. Then we'll take the car out on the road and do some acceleration tests. We'll see how fast we get the car from 0 to 60 and 20 to 80 and then compare those to the stage 1 numbers. Then towards the end of the video will be general commentary about where I feel I'm getting most of my power gains from, what parts are and aren't worth it, and then finally we'll look towards the future and talk about what's going to go down in stage 3. Boom, let's get started. Zippity zap, and we're back. Now, if this is your first time watching one of my videos, you may or may not know that I'm on a mission to build up my 2007 Mustang GT there to put down at least 700 wheel horsepower. Anybody who knows anything about 3Bs knows that those engines can't handle that on stock internals. So I've broken up the whole build process into stages. There is a Google Sheet in the description below if you're curious about what's been done to the car and what will be done to the car. Alright, so stage 2 was all about bolt-ons. I pretty much installed every bolt-on I could find on this engine besides the throttle body spacer. So stage 2 was made up of about 8 parts, most of them being power upgrades. So let's just run down the list. First up is the Cook's long tube headers with the X-pipe and the high flow cats. I dedicated a whole video to that exhaust setup, but here's some rolling As you can tell, the car sounds pretty good now. My mechanic who installed them said he really appreciated the construction of them, the fitment, how it went around all the existing parts under the hood, and there was a lot of clearance, and he now recommends those headers to 3-valve owners who come in looking to upgrade their exhaust system. Next up on the list is a one-piece aluminum drive shaft, which can be a pretty hard upgrade to justify on its own because it costs about $750. But if you're already upgrading your exhaust system and you have the pipes out of the way, it's a pretty easy part to get up in there and bolt it on. Also, once you see the stock aluminum or stock drive shaft on your car, you're going to be like, get that thing off my car. The third performance upgrade I had slotted for stage 2 was Ford Racing's performance intake manifold. But after doing a few dyno comparisons against the stock intake manifold, I've actually opted to keep the stock intake manifold. And I made a whole video on this, so if you're interested in why I did that, I put a link in the description below. So that manifold comes in above $600, another pricey part, and I'm pretty bummed it's not on the car right now because it looks so good. But it will be back on the car one day once we get a turbo or twin turbo or sequential turbo, whatever configuration we end up going with in the end. I paired the intake manifold with the fourth part, which is the Ford Racing's twin 62mm throttle body. Obviously, that's not going to give me a lot of power gains right now, but it looks great and it will act as a multiplier once the car is boosted. That throttle body comes in pretty pricey as well, also above $600. So just the Ford Performance intake manifold and throttle body alone are going to sit you above $1,300 with tax. The fifth bolt-on I got installed in the car was an underdrive pulley, which I find a really interesting part because it lets you change how much power you're sending to the peripherals in your car. You know, your power windows, your radio, your AC, and so on. You know, your battery's just there to start the car, But once the car's running, you have to send some amount of power from the crank to your peripherals. The underdrive pulley lets you change that and reduce that amount of power just by swapping the gears. So you have a bigger gear over here and you got a smaller gear on your peripherals. The underdrive pulley just swaps those so you don't have to change the belt size. So this is a really great part because physics is on your side. It's cheap. I got the cheap one. It was $160. I know there's one, the Steeda's like $255, but it was a really good looking part, and you just know you're gonna get more power. Some people have had like overheating problems with their car, and I think that has to do with a particular model, but I'm not sure which one. I've had it on my car for over a month in 80, 90 degree weather with no issues. Next up, we have MSD Blaster coil-on plug set and Ford Racing's blue valve covers. The coil-on plugs come in about $260 and the valve covers are about $300. It's pretty debatable if you're going to get any performance gains from a coil-on plug set. Maybe you would if you had an underperforming pack, but really I just got them to have an offset color with the blue. Just wanted to get some engine dress up on the car, and I think it turned out really well. I've also done a video on how to install those valve covers, so if you're thinking about getting a pair of your own or spray painting the ones you already have in the car, be sure to check that video out because I can guarantee you it's going to help you get them on the car. The last bolt-on I put on the car is purely cosmetic. I got Raxium's Vector taillights with the white diffusers. I really liked how the white part of the tri-bar matches the wheel and kind of the whole gray theme of my car. So I don't recommend them for everyone's car. It kind of depends on like your paint scheme and your wheel color and all that, but I do like the way they turned out in my car. Those are pretty pricey, coming in about $450. The final piece to the Stage 2 puzzle wasn't a part at all. It was a custom dyno tune done by a very skilled and knowledgeable local guy that was well worth the $500 I paid for it. But we'll talk more about that later when we go over the power numbers. Tally up all those prices and you'll find that I spent over $4,500 alone on parts in Stage 2. And that $4,500 figure doesn't include installation, it doesn't even include taxes. Now obviously the way I'm going about building up my Mustang isn't the most efficient method. I could just go and get a Roush supercharger and some long tube headers and call it good, but that's not what this project is about. Anyway, it's time to talk power, so let's jump over to my computer and look at some charts. The first dyno run we're going to look at was done back in the summer of 2017 for Stage 1, when the only power upgrades on the Mustang was an air raid cold air intake with a 91R Bama tune. Now back then we can see the car was putting down 307 pound-feet of torque and 292 horsepower. As I said in the last video, pretty predictable numbers for an S197 3-valve with that setup. Okay, drum roll. And the Stage 2 chart looks like this. Now, before I put the peak numbers out there, can we please take a moment to look at this absolutely massive increase in low-end torque around 2,500 RPM for about 75 pound-feet. Now, that wasn't from the upgrades alone. I didn't get that much increase in torque until after the custom tune. Actually, after I had all the parts put on, so all the same parts as this chart here, you can see these teal lines there. That's what the car was putting down with kind of a janky Bama tune that was really only meant for cold air intake because every other tune they sent me wouldn't work on my car. Now this just goes to show the importance of a custom tune on your Mustang. As for peak numbers, the Mustang is now putting down just under 340 wheel pound-feet of torque around the same peak zone of 4,400 RPM. That's an increase of 32 pound-feet or about 10.5%. Not bad, but I think the real story here is the area between the torque curves where you can see there's a ton of torque down low that just carries throughout the band, and man, can you feel it. Horsepower-wise, we've peaked at 327 wheel horsepower, a little higher up in the band, around 5,700 RPM. That's an increase of 35 horsepower or about 12%. even better. Now look, I'm stoked on these charts. The car feels great, the car runs great, I love driving it, but let's go find out what these numbers mean in terms of acceleration. We'll be doing the same 2 tests we did in the stage 1 video, which is a 0 to 60 and a rolling 20 to 80. We'll do each test a few times in hopes of minimizing our acceleration times. But first, let's warm up the tires. Okay, 0 to 60, take 1. On the 20 to 80, I have to go through both second and third, so there's a lot of opportunity for driver error. Just give it a few tries and hope for the best. To 80, take 3. Back in stage 1, we were able to get to 60 miles an hour in 6.04 seconds. This time around, we did it in 5.63, which is a reduction of about 0.4 seconds. Not too bad. As for the 20 to 80, back in stage 1, we did it in 8.04 seconds, and this time around, we did it in 7.57, which is a reduction of almost half a second. So an improvement in acceleration times all around. Pretty pleased with them. Probably could have done a little better, but just happy to see improvement. Okay, let's talk about what parts are and aren't worth it in terms of bolt-ons. Now, if you're not looking to go full bore with your Mustang, you're not going to get it boosted, but you are looking for a little extra kick under the hood, this is what you need to do. Get any cold air intake that requires the tune, get a full exhaust setup, which means headers and either an X or an H pipe, and get the underdrive pulley. Pair those parts with a custom dyno tune and you're set. Don't waste your money on a special intake manifold, throttle body spacer, none of that. Alright boys, so it feels great to have stage 2 completed, but let's talk about what we're going to do in stage 3. We're going to get cams, not sure which ones yet, still doing my research there. We're going to do a significant suspension upgrade with either Eibach coilovers or air suspension. Still haven't made my decision there yet. Feel free to plug your input below. And then we'll do various cosmetic upgrades along the way. So if you're interested in watching this build progress, you like what I'm doing here, you know what to do, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Peace.